I head the Office of China Coordination, which our Secretary stood up last December to harmonize efforts across the State Department to help prioritize and better coordinate our response to some of the challenges that the Chairman and the Ranking Member laid out. I would highlight in the sub-Saharan African context 5 broad areas. The first is the issue of the rules-based international order, a seemingly esoteric concept that is quite important, I think, to everything from the norms and standards that our companies and our workers face to the very norms of sovereignty that uphold the international system. And sub-Saharan Africa has nearly a quarter of the votes in the UN General Assembly. You acknowledged, Mr. Chairman, the robust diplomacy the Chinese have engaged in. We counted at least 120 senior-level visits in 15 years. We believe the PRC continues to promote its national initiatives, its own concepts in this area, like the Global Security and Global Development Initiative, with the goal of reshaping this rules-based international order on terms favorable to Beijing. Second, in the economic realm, there are a number of concerns ranging from critical mineral supply chains to non-transparent PRC lending practices to illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing. There are real infrastructure needs on the continent. We all acknowledge that. But the way in which these needs are met should be free from corruption and coercion. Third, technology. From a U.S. perspective, we support the free flow of ideas, digital connectivity. These are foundational bases of growth, and yet the PRC alternatives in areas such as 5G technology and smart cities often carries profound risks to national security, to countries' sovereignty, to privacy, and to basic human rights. Fourth, security. The chairman mentioned the PLA's first overseas base in Djibouti. We believe the PRC is pursuing additional facilities in Kenya, Seychelles, Tanzania, Angola, and potentially elsewhere along the Atlantic coastline. And we have made clear in our bilateral relations and in many of our pronouncements that a PRC military presence on the Atlantic coast of Africa would represent a threat to our national security. Finally, in the informational and influence realm, there are a number of things that we should talk about here, ranging from how the PRC is leveraging content sharing agreements, ownership agreements with African media outlets, exchange programs, and its own high-level engagements to shape and deliver a distorted message of the U.S. You also mentioned extraterritorial law enforcement, the challenge of police stations, and I would note yesterday we took a very resolute response to the one in New York through the Department of Justice's announcement of a number of indictments. A problem that we have long been aware of, the problem of transnational law enforcement within our borders, within the borders of dozens of countries, is an issue that we have been working to respond to in 2 ways. One is through our public diplomacy and through our private diplomatic channels. We have been engaged in a pretty extensive effort to share what we know and to develop the tools and response options that are most effective to this unique aspect of China's influence agenda. The second piece of our response really is in law enforcement channels, and there I'll defer to the Department of Justice, but I think in the statement they issued yesterday, the indictments against 44 Chinese nationals and a few others in New York, I think DOJ made clear that we will be resolute in responding to transnational law enforcement within our own borders. To be honest, the Chinese spend billions on their influence efforts, on their informational activities. There are 30 Xinhua offices in the subcontinent. This year, despite having a domestic economy in China that has slowed, their foreign ministry budget increased by double digits, by 12%.